Hi, Charlie. Thank you for speaking to us about your language learning. We've got a great opportunity coming up with ONCE in Spain, where we're going to bring together some of our students in the UK, some of their students in Spain, and basically the chance to practice their language skills. You have actually been studying languages in the UK at school and then actually went on to take that further at university. Could you give us a little insight into what you've done with your language learning?
Yep, so I studied GCSE Spanish at school and then A-level Spanish at college. And during that time, I started to get really interested in Spanish, and I realized that it wasn't just sort of another subject, it was something that I really enjoyed, because it opened new doors. I could, learn new things about different cultures and different places that otherwise I wouldn't know about. Um, and I wasn't entirely sure that that's what I wanted to do going forward, but I knew that I didn't want to lose it. But then I ended up deciding that I wanted to do it at university. And so then in 2018, I went on to study Spanish and Portuguese at Queen's University in Belfast. And then I graduated this year in July.
Brilliant. Was there a reason why, in particular, it was Spanish and Portuguese? Did you have a particular affiliation with those languages, or?
With Spanish, so because I'd already done it at school and because it was a language that I liked, I enjoyed it and I was good at it. And then I wanted to add another language on top of it. Most people would usually do French. And that's great, but I also wanted to sort of maybe try something that was a bit different that people didn't necessarily know, because I also think that that's quite good in itself because it could open up sort of different opportunities when you sort of have a different when you have a variety of languages that and in linguistic terms, Spanish and Portuguese are quite similar, but they still have their differences, which is also a challenge. But yeah, no, it was really good being able to take that from scratch again, learn Portuguese from scratch, and sort of take it to the same level as my Spanish.
And you mentioned about college. You were at New College Worcester, weren't you?
Yeah,
So I suppose in terms of uh, resources and adaptations and accessibility to learning, that was fairly well set up, I'd imagine, at
yeah.
New College. But when you made the transition to university, did you come across any particular issues with that, or were the university quite good at adapting things, or how did you find that process of in dialogue with them, being able to modify things for your
Yeah.
studies?
I went around various universities and I saw some that I just really didn't think were very good. I would go around their disability departments and sort of, ask, oh, how could you assist me with this? And lots of them just wouldn't know, or they would just give really vague answers. And so I ended up studying at Queen's in Belfast, which is a bit of an odd choice for someone coming from England often, but I enjoyed myself there. It was a really good time and I really liked it. But in terms of accessibility, I went for it because I thought that it was the best out of the ones that I'd seen and out of the programs that I'd seen out of the different degrees. Um, and, I think definitely going from an accessible setting like New College, then to university, sort of, I think it was kind of a shock for me about having to, constantly be like, oh, could I get this accessible? Could I have this made accessible? Or could I, can I have this in advance so I can make it accessible myself? And really sort of having to remind people. And especially I think as well, because on a personal note, sort of, unless I was struggling with something, you might not know that I had a visual impairment unless I was sort of really struggling to see something, because I tried to make as much of the stuff accessible myself. I tried to be really proactive on that account. But there was always things that I would turn up and they'd be like, oh, we've changed what we're going to do and we're going to do this today. And it was often, right, okay, now I need to completely change this and have a think. But after a few months, things did settle down, people understood. Um, yeah, so in general, things were okay. Sadly, on my last exam, though, I arrived and it wasn't made accessible, which was really disheartening after the whole 4 years. And I got there and it was just a regular print size exam. And I'm just like, you've given me extra time, but I can't read the exam paper. So that was a bit stressful, and it made what was already going to be a long day a very, very long day because I had to go and make it accessible and bring it back to me. But yeah, definitely, I think having the confidence to sort of go up and speak for yourself is really important because no one else is going to do it for you.
Exactly, and that's a very similar message we've got from a lot of people like yourselves that have gone on to study different things at university. In particular with languages, is there any kind of advice or recommendations you would make to support with language learning that you found useful that you would sort of pass on to others thinking of doing the same?
I think it depends on the level of visual impairment you've got. So if you're using Braille, then obviously you're going to need to know the different accents and what they are in Braille and that kind of thing. If you're using large print, it's a bit simpler. I don't think there's anything specific to languages. I think as a subject itself, it lends itself quite well because it's a lot of listening, it's a lot of writing, it's a lot of reading, which if you've got it in accessible format is fine. It's nothing that is sort of very abstract. It's basically just using what you would use in everyday life, but just in a different language.
And now that you've graduated from university, how are you hoping to use your languages for sort of future career goals? What's the plan?
I'm quite open at the minute. I have spent the last few months trying to look for a job, and I'm definitely sort of looking to go down the route of something that's involving Spanish and or Portuguese because of the fact that I think it's something that's very useful for employers, and also for myself, just because it's a real interest of mine and I really enjoy using it. And I think if I've gone to all the if I've gone through all of the hoops of doing a degree in it, I really want to be using it.
I suppose with Spanish and Portuguese, that's community, and obviously being an English speaker, you can communicate with pretty much 2/3 of the world, I suppose.
A lot of people, yeah.
So like I mentioned, we've got this opportunity with ONFE coming up for some of our teenagers who are learning Spanish GCSE stage, and a great opportunity to speak with Spanish teenagers who are also practicing their English. What would be your advice? Would you recommend that this is something for those that are developing their language skills, certainly at GCSE level, and would like to progress it possibly into A level, maybe even go on to study at university?
Mm-hmm.
Is this a sort of program you would recommend? Do you think this is a great opportunity for young people to practice their oral skills with native sort of Spanish speakers?
Definitely. I think often studying languages at school can kind of just feel like another subject, and you kind of have the idea in your head of, oh, but why is it important? I'm not going to use it. I don't go to Spain or whatever. But I think having that opportunity to realize, oh yeah, there are people out there that use these languages every day, and that I can, make new friends, and it can be in Spanish, and like they can make new friendships with me, and it can be in English, and we can talk to each other and share things, and basically just do things that regular teenagers would do, whether you've got a visual impairment or not, whether whatever language you speak or not, and try and sort of almost like a puzzle sort of, because at that stage especially, trying to make it all linking together, and hopefully sort of one thing leads to another, and you then sort of grow in confidence with it as well.
And you're absolutely right, and I think the confidence is also linked to a little bit of possibly a bit of fear about being about making mistakes along the way, which is quite common with language learning. So I think that's a bit of advice to any sort of teenagers thinking about getting involved in the sessions. It doesn't matter, it's all about learning and trying different things and trial and error, and the Spanish teenagers will be in the same boat with their English.
Yeah, I mean, if you aren't making mistakes, it's because you're not trying. So you've got to make those mistakes in order to realize, oh, so that's not how you say that, that's how you say that correctly, and to realize, oh, I said that word and they didn't understand what I said, so maybe I need to go back and look at how I can say that better or whatever. And sort of being in a group setting as well with doing it with VICTA, I think that it'll be great because you can all sort of bounce ideas off each other, and the Spanish students can do the same.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much for chatting to us, Charlie. I suppose final thing to say really is adios.
Adios.